Welcome to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno. Today's guest is anchor for CBS Sports HQ, Jeremy St. Louis. Jeremy, I really appreciate the time you have to be on today's episode. I'm so excited to get going.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me to join you.
So you've traveled down to the southern U.S. You're living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida right now, but your origins with working on television originate way back to here, the heart of the continent, Winnipeg, Manitoba, with a very famous, for its time, national soccer show, Fox Soccer Report, shot here, based out of Winnipeg. I remember watching it as a kid with my brothers and my friends. It was super enjoyable to always catch all the highlights and all the work that you guys and the rest of the crew did. Talk about how you navigated your journey in terms of what made you want to be on television and how you ended up at Fox Soccer Report.
Well, I mean, it was really serendipity. I was doing my bachelor's degree. I was chasing a Bachelor of Science degree. I was originally planning to be a science teacher, but then I had a dinner with someone who had been trying to get my father to do radio commercials for the longest time. But my dad had a bit of a stuttering problem when he was young, so he was very self-conscious about it. We were having dinner, and this guy said, "Well, Jeremy, you've got the same kind of voice as your dad. Would you be interested in doing some radio?" And I thought about it, and I thought, I was in university at the time, so I was in my third year. I was like, whatever. I mean, I'll do anything for money. What do you need me to do? And so he said, well, call this number at that time, take a little voice test, and we'll see. And so I did that. They came back to me and said, yeah, we've got work for you in Toronto. I was going to school in Thunder Bay at the time, and they said, we've got work for you in Toronto. But the way that the caveat kind of worked is that what I would make is what it would cost me to get there and back. So I just thought, this is a zero-sum game, and I want to make money. And then I started thinking about journalism and, sports journalism. And then I ended up graduating with my degree, and then ended up going to SAIT in Calgary to do my journalism. And then from there, it was basically all over Hell's Half Acre. As I kind of made my way through, I started in radio in Brandon, doing radio news there. I went to Yorkton, Saskatchewan to do my first sports television job. I did sports and weather there. Then I transitioned to Medicine Hat, Alberta, where I was a sports anchor there for 2 years, and then made my way back to Winnipeg in 2000, made my way back to Winnipeg as a community events and weather specialist at Global Television in Winnipeg. And then during my first year there, Joe Piscucci came to me and said, hey, we're looking at doing this new international sports program. Would you be interested in doing it? Because I know you have a sports background. And I said, sure. I'd love to get back into sports. And then that's what launched Global Sports Link on Fox Sports World Canada. And then that show over time morphed into what you and your brothers and friends know as the Fox Soccer Report. It went through many different incarnations. It was Global Sports Link. Then I think it was Fox Sports World Report. Then it was Fox Soccer Report. And that's kind of where it ended. It started as a half-hour show, I think 5 days a week. And then it went to 7. And then it was an hour. And then, Fox in the US picked it up and started showing it. And then, so, the opportunity to do a sports show was something that had been, on my radar when I graduated from journalism school. I actually had set the goal for myself to be on a national sports show within 10 years, within a decade. That's what I kind of gave myself to kind of, learn what I needed to learn and hopefully, make the jumps I needed to make in order to get to the level that I wanted to be at. And by the time I got to Global Sports Link, that was year 7, and I was on that show. And so, I had achieved my goals. And then from there, it was just about growing the product, growing myself, growing the product, and, working my way through all of that. And it was, what you guys saw on television on that side of it, the enjoyment that you got out of it, we got that enjoyment as well. It was a fantastic experience. And it's something that, if that's what I'm known for the rest of my career, that's not a bad thing to be known for.
And especially even just talking about the things that you did in order to get there, just a multitude of places across Western Canada. And it really illustrates the summary of the journey that it takes to get to a national television show. Even during that time, it's no different now. Maybe the digital component, as you're more familiar with today, has become the most prominent form of consuming media for most viewers. Obviously, live events for sports will still win. People will still watch on television. But in terms of consuming content, the highlight shows have become archaic in a way. And now people are consuming content through TikTok or Instagram or watching on streaming devices on their apps on through mobile apps on tablets or phones. That's become super popular. During that time, you guys were using VHS tapes towards the end of their life and all the sorts of different manual functions of television. What was the most challenging thing that you guys had to deal with when creating and compiling highlights and producing Fox Soccer Report? How did you kind of like learn through the different difficulties that you guys had to face?
Well, I mean, a lot of the time, and this is the beauty of television, is that you don't know what it takes to get a program like that to air. And that, you kind of equate television to, a duck on the lake, right? All smooth on top, but below the surface, the feet are just going. And that really is a perfect summary of what we were doing on Fox Soccer Report, because the hardest part for us was getting the highlights, cutting the highlights, and then trying to decide what we wanted to put in and what we wanted to keep out. I mean, we really wanted to put as much in as we could. And I remember some weekends, we would have, we actually capped the amount of highlights that we would be responsible for as individual anchors over the course of an hour-long show to 10. So we would do 10 games each is what we would be looking at. So you're looking at 20 sets of highlights within an hour, which is a lot of highlights. And we were responsible for cutting those and, writing them out, making sure that, we had the information correct. And then on top of that, writing your lead-ins for the different highlights or the different games, and, doing boards, here's what's coming up this week, or, the standings boards and all that stuff, the minutia around the highlights that kind of, brings everything together. And so I would say that for us, the hardest part was just getting everything done in time to get a show to air, because we wanted to pack so much in there, because the respect that we had for the audience, the soccer audiences, we learned over time, was so passionate. You mispronounce the syllable of a name and you're getting an email, and they're letting you know. And those early days were really, really rough because our pronunciations just were not there. We were literally calling consulates, to get pronunciations of names, because you just have no idea. But for us, really just getting that stuff to air some days is, was tough. I remember some days one of my favorite guys to work with was Carlos Machado, and Carlos and I had a very, we worked really well together, and we had a good rapport on the air. And Carlos was such a great guy. He's just a real good guy. But Carlos had been around for a while. And so when we had really tough days, Carlos, before the show, we'd always have 45 minutes to an hour before the show where we kind of cut everything off and just said, okay, now's the time to get ready for the show. You print your scripts, you do your makeup, you get dressed, and then you kind of just get ready for what's about to come. Because unlike, a lot of jobs in television, you've got to be your best at the end of your shift, not at the beginning, at the end, because that's when your show is. And so, over the course of a day, you get pretty run down, and, you get kind of tired and fatigued and whatnot. And I remember some of those harder days, Carlos would just open up the bottom drawer of his desk. He'd pull out a bottle of the Balvenie scotch. He'd kind of put it on his desk. We'd all get some styrofoam cups, and we'd have a little nip before we go on television, and then go on and do the show. And the show was always much lighter after you've had a little bit of scotch before you go on the air. But like I said, most of the time it was just getting that stuff to air was the hardest part for us, and overcoming some of the infrastructure issues that we had to deal with. But over time, it got easier because, as you mentioned, things went digital. We weren't necessarily dealing with tape as much in those final days when I was there. So that made it certainly a lot easier to kind of get that show to air. But in those early days, man, it was no joke. It was no joke. It was a lot of hard work.
And it's interesting you mentioned the part about drinking a bit of scotch. I think there was an article that was released by the New York Post or TMZ or one of those media outlets talking about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman drinking tequila shots in between games. And people are like, well, no wonder. And then taking the random screenshots of Joe Buck's face or Troy Aikman's face, and them looking weird or making weird gestures, etc. But it's not to say that they're the only people that have done it. And because they're in the biggest spotlight, they're the ones who are going to have most people looking at them. But you're right. It is so difficult. And I've even talked to some people in the sports media industry and asked them about their original goals. And sometimes people said that they have changed and that they veered away from television. Or even when Derek and I were doing our episode, he talked about the late nights that turned into early mornings and the repetition that comes with that. And then eventually the life decisions that cross paths with this style of career that people are like, okay, well, I can't work from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. anymore. So did you find that as time went on that it became a bit difficult to deal with the schedule, or how have you found you've adapted to maybe the very weird sets of times that you're going to be working within television or radio?
Well, I mean, I was fortunate in that, my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, Terry Lee, worked on the program with me. And so, I mean, we spent time together at work. So, I mean, we didn't necessarily have those same kind of life issues that, someone like Derek and his wife would have, and working in kind of two different areas. So that kind of helped a little bit. That was pluses and minuses, obviously. But I think that for me, yeah, there were some really tough days, but at the end of the day, I mean, I really love it. I mean, I really love what I do. And I consider myself very, very fortunate with the opportunities that I've had and the things that I've been able to do throughout the course of my career. I mean, yeah, I had a great time at Fox Soccer Report, but I mean, without lying, I mean, I've been able to do some really great things since my time at Fox Soccer Report, and that helped to prepare me for those kind of things. And yeah, I've worked some super long hours. I've done overnights. I get what Derek's saying, and Derek and I are we're in regular contact. I mean, I talk to him, usually once every couple of months. We'll have a little chat. So I understand that. I understand the life issues that can be that. But for me, I mean, I really love what I do. So I'm just, yeah, it kind of gets to you at certain points, but I love it. I love it. And so if I have to do it for 12 hours, if I have to do it for 14 hours a day, I'll do it. I'll have fun doing it. I'll make it fun, but I can understand how it can get to other people. And obviously work-life balance is so important. And it truly is. And I understand that too. And when you're not happy at work, the rest of your life's it's gonna suffer. So, it's so important. And in television, it's so difficult. I often say that it always kind of evens itself out. You're gonna have times where you're doing big events like a World Cup, or, if you're on a trip doing something somewhere where you're going to work a lot of hours, but then down the line, you're only going to work for 3 or 4 hours in a day. And with Fox Soccer Report, it used to actually work like that. We actually had a rotation where, you would have anchors on the desk. You weren't necessarily anchoring all the time. You would do what we called a reporting shift, which is, you would basically cut highlights. You'd write something for the other anchors. You'd kind of take care of some things. You'd maybe voice a package, or, put together a piece. I used to do the MLS segment once a week. That was kind of my reporting shift. I would do the MLS segment and then kind of round things out. And that was more of like a lighter shift of sorts, where you kind of, you had a more leisurely kind of day. And those kind of days helped to kind of, because of the fact the show was so labor intensive in terms of getting the show to air, that actually helped with kind of, just allowing you to kind of pull back and just kind of relax a little bit, enjoy the process itself, and kind of help out the other anchors too. And that's something that's happened throughout the course of my career. Even after Fox Soccer Report, going to Be in Sports was the same type of thing. Be in Sports was, Fox Soccer Report prepared me for what Be in Sports was, because Be in Sports was just as labor intensive and just as difficult, albeit in a different sort of way, than Fox Soccer Report was. And yeah, I mean, work-life balance, it can get you if you don't love it, that's for sure. I'm fortunate in that I love it, and I've had the opportunity to do some really great things.
That's an important aspect of doing it, the type of job that television requires. If you're anchoring or you're reporting, gotta love it. And you're right, work-life balance can definitely be difficult for people to find in more niche jobs, or jobs that maybe aren't as commonplace that you would come across, such as working on television or working in sports. So what is it specifically that you love so much about working on television or working in the sports media industry?
I right now with CBS Sports HQ, I mean, I anchor on 2 different programs there. So the morning program that we do is highlights based. You're getting a lot of highlights from overnights and stuff. And it's a digital program. So, to your point about the fact that people are consuming things digitally, that's why CBS Sports launched CBS Sports HQ. It's basically a 24/7 digital sports network that runs exactly like ESPN or Fox Sports or CBS Sports, Sports Network. It's a 24/7 sports network. So you're getting highlights in the morning, the highlight show, which I absolutely love. I love doing highlights because you just get to have so much fun with highlights, and you get to kind of play a little bit. That's the way I look at it. You get to kind of play. And then in the afternoon show that we do, which goes at noon Eastern time, is more of an issues type of show where we're doing interviews with analysts. We're not doing highlights of any kind. We're doing interviews with analysts about, different aspects of sport, a lot of NFL stuff. We're doing soccer, baseball, hockey, you name it. I mean, I've interviewed pretty much everybody. I mean, I was interviewing NASCAR guys last year. So, you get the chance to kind of sharpen your interview skills as well, doing something like that. So it's just, you get to, I just like to have fun, and the variety is what really helps to be able to keep you on your toes. And so I find that that is kind of what I love, certainly a lot about it. Is just you get that variety that allows you to work on a number of different aspects of what rounds you out as a journalist and as a sports journalist in this type of career.
That's really cool that CBS had launched their HQ digital platform, because it provides the same content that people are looking for, but through the medium that people are now looking towards, related to watching sports, sharing highlights. And yeah.
Sorry, and just with that HQ thing, one of the things I want to point out is, like, you talk about things that are happening instantaneously, and you're able to just get highlights like right away. So this week, for example, what HQ has is the model that they use is that, so you can see it on your phone, you can see it on your tablet, you can see it on your Roku, Apple TV, you can do all of that. You can watch it like you watch traditional sports. But if you're on the go and you are, you have your notifications for HQ set up, if something breaks, you're going to get a notification immediately that something has broken, and HQ is going to go up within 5 minutes with an analyst talking about it. So when Tiger Woods had his accident this week, we were up on HQ within 5 minutes of that report becoming public, getting our sources ready on their end of things, doing like Zoom and Skype and whatnot. And then we were on the air on HQ, for you digitally, no matter where you are, for probably like 45 minutes, trying to keep people updated on what was going on. That's the one thing that's really cool about what CBS Sports is doing with the HQ, is that when stuff breaks, you're going to get it immediately, and we're able to give it to you. We're not constrained by sponsors. We're not constrained by programming commitments. We're not constrained by anything. We are a 24/7 digital sports channel. When it breaks, we have it immediately, and usually we have it before anybody else can even get up there starting to talk about it. So that's one of the really cool things about HQ. Pardon me for interruption.
Oh, no worries. And I was going to say that that's a great thing you pointed out, because I found is when I'm a consumer and I'm looking for updates, analysis, and stories, or when I'm writing articles, I'm trying to find more information or say, okay, what's the specific analysis? Or when things go to press, it takes a little while. Claude Julien gets relieved of his duties the other day. Okay, you got to wait. You get the stories broken, and then they fill in the information later, but you're not getting as much in-depth analysis until later the night, or until Sportsnet or TSN here in Canada for the Canadians would compile the analysis they have from their insiders, and then they would put it out. And while obviously there's lots of people that are racing to see how fast they can get it out, if the reports are accurate, then getting it out fast is going to give you the edge, and it's going to increase the chances for somebody to want to subscribe or to consume content through that medium, because people want to get stuff as fast as they can and as accurately as they can. So if it's all accurately, okay, now what's faster? Okay, CBS HQ, okay, I'm gonna subscribe to them now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we have, was we've noticed that our numbers year over year continue to just skyrocket as people become more and more aware of what we're doing, and the fact that we're giving them their information as quickly as possible. I mean, really all we wait for, Matthias, I'll be sitting in the newsroom, and we have a news team, and he'll say, hey, we just saw on Twitter Tiger Woods has been involved in a car accident. Jeremy, get ready, because we're going to go up. We're probably going to go up. We're just going to await confirmation from one of our sources. They contact CBS Sports. They have sources everywhere. So, I mean, they simply just make a phone call, confirm it. Yeah, okay, it's confirmed. Okay, we're going up in 3 minutes. Jeremy, make your way down to the studio. We're going up in 3 minutes. So then it's a matter of, being ready at that time to go up with as much information as possible to be able to provide that. I mean, there's a lot of pressure doing something like that. It's not easy sometimes to go up within 5 minutes. I mean, it's not always Tiger Woods. Maybe it's a big baseball signing that nobody's been, keeping an eye on. And all of a sudden, bam, now you've got this big baseball signing. You got 5 minutes to get yourself ready and know enough to kind of go up with an analyst and start asking him questions about this particular aspect of it. So that's one of the things is that, as people become more aware of what we're doing at HQ, it's, as I said, our numbers are going up, month by month by month.
So it almost sounds like you're a firefighter, but in sports media where news breaks. Okay, everyone go, get your jacket on and you go down to the studio and then you got to record right away. That's what it reminds me of.
100%. And that's a great analogy. I'm going to take that to work tomorrow. I'm doing HQ tomorrow. So I'm going to take that to work and say, hey, we're firefighters over here.
Well, you're saving the lives of sports fans from having to wait one more second than they would, or maybe a few more hours or a few more minutes. So it's definitely an interesting way for them to approach putting out content for others. Now, you mentioned being able to interview people from a very wide variety of sports. Who are some of the coolest people that you've interviewed in your time working at CBS or maybe even working at beIN Sports?
Oh, well, I mean, I had the chance to, my time at Fox Soccer Report, I mean, I think one of the biggest interviews I've done in my career was with David Beckham. When I was at Fox Soccer Report, I had the chance to interview him twice, which was phenomenal and just a fantastic guy. I've talked to Ronaldinho. I've talked to Messi. When I was at beIN, we had the chance to not only interview guys, but work with prominent football people. I mean, I shared a studio with Christian Vieri for a number of years. And Bobo is, somebody who I call as a personal friend. He's a great guy and one of the greatest Italian scorers in the history of Serie A. I mean, I remember doing highlights of Vieri scoring goals and to be sitting across. I mean, I literally, the first couple of times when I had him on a show with me, I literally was looking at him and just like, how does this happen? How does this kid who's doing this show in Winnipeg that, some people watched sitting across from one of the greatest Italian goal scorers of all time, just shooting the shit with him, like that kind of thing. So, and I mean, I had the chance to, I've talked to Tony Adams, worked with us, Ruud Gullit, Luis Garcia is a guy who I see still with CBS. He's with us at CBS now. Geez, if you have me run down the list, I've just had the opportunity to work with so many great guys. I did college football with beIN Sports for 3 seasons. And in that time, I worked with Donovan McNabb. He was one of my guys. DJ Williams. I worked with Randall Hill. I worked with Kajana Carter. I've had the opportunity to just interview so many people. And I've been lucky. I haven't really had a bad experience. The only real bad experience I had doing an interview was with Shaq. I mean, Shaq, he's just so big, literally and figuratively, that, I think it was at the end of his day, he was a little bit tired. And so, maybe he had enough of some of the questions that people were firing at him. But, I've just had the chance to just interview some, so many great people. And then also too at CBS, we've had the chance to talk to some really great, pros, former pros. And I mean, when you have the resources of CBS, when they call you, whether you're an athlete or not, they, you pick up the phone and you get on top of that. And so, yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of fortune in terms of being able to interview some really great people.
I couldn't even believe half the people on that list. That's absolutely wild to think about.
Yeah, some guy who grew up in Charleswood, right? I mean, here he is, right?
Charleswood and Winnipeg. I mean, I remember an old high school teacher of mine at St. Paul's. He referred to Charleswood as God's County, and I guess you could say that the name will hold true for its residents for the time being, especially considering even if the experience was okay with Shaq, like Shaq is still such an incredible figure in the media and in basketball, or Messi, like. Okay, does Messi speak English or did you just have the translator? Like I've always been curious about that. I've never looked.
No, I had a translator. I had a translator with me. One of the guys who actually worked with us on Fox Soccer Report, one of our production assistants, was from Argentina, and great guy, Miguel. And he came over he came over to Barcelona with me. I was sent over to Barcelona, and I did a sit down with Ronaldinho, and then we attended training the next day. And Messi, we talked to Messi, we talked to Thierry Henry was there at the time. Frank Rijkaard was the manager. We managed to talk to him for a little bit.
What year was it?
Oh gosh, where was that? 2009, maybe.
2000 or 2007, like, because Ronaldinho and Messi and Henry on the team, like, or maybe it was 09 too, like, because I just know Ronaldinho wasn't, or
yeah, that may have been before that. It may have been before that. I mean, my memory's kind of foggy about that, but yeah, it was. It may have been 09 or 08. I can't remember. Can't quite remember. But all I remember was standing there again, looking at Lionel Messi, and just being like, "How does this guy from Winnipeg get to talk to one of the biggest superstars on the planet in terms of world football and just sports in general?" And that's happened to me a lot in my career. That's happened to me a lot. When I was doing the Champions League final in Madrid for Fox Sports, I was standing there, and somebody actually caught the moment. One of the photographers caught a moment and sent me the picture of it. But fans are filing in, and I'm getting ready to do a sideline reporting with Fox for that broadcast. It was the first ever broadcast that they did the Champions League on the weekend, and they aired it on Fox Sports, Big Fox, we called it. And I remember standing there just looking around, looking at the stadium, and just kind of taking it all in just for a second, because you're so nervous, you're so hyped up, you're so like, okay, I want to make sure I got this right, I want to make sure I've done this properly. And then, I just took a moment to just breathe for a second and just kind of take it all in, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was just, I've had a lot of those moments in my career where I'm just like, how does this kid from Winnipeg, who grew up just, like every other regular person, get this opportunity to be here doing this? And I mean, I did it at Winnipeg Stadium when I was doing weather. I mean, I would literally have those moments at Winnipeg Stadium when I was doing that for the first time. I was like, how am I at the Winnipeg Stadium during a CFL game? Because I love the CFL. And I've had a lot of moments in my career where I've been able to just take a moment and just be like, you are so lucky to be able to be here right now and do this. And that's why if my career ended tomorrow, I would have nothing to be sad about. I've had a career that many sportscasters and young sportscasters could only dream of. And I never dreamed it for myself, which was the amazing part about it. And, I've just been so incredibly fortunate, and I'm very, very thankful that I've had the opportunity to talk to, Joe Blow to Lionel Messi.
That's absolutely fantastic. And to even just sit there looking across the field and seeing Messi or Ronaldinho or Henry or even any one of those three. It doesn't even have to be all three together. It can just be one of those guys. And for any football fans anywhere, any age, would just be an absolute shock, because they carry some of the most famous lore about their style of play, who they are as a person, what they've done internationally, what they've done on the club level. It's just too crazy to think about. I don't even know what I would do in that moment if I was, that young, or like yourself, just sitting there, like, even if you're towering over Messi, I know he's not that tall, but you're just like, oh, okay. Like, hey.
Well, and I had the chance to I did 2 Clásicos, and just, I mean, you're looking at Messi and Ronaldo in their prime going head to head. And like, it just, you can't, I mean, it's like, it would be like watching Gretzky and Lemieux play each other. Like, really, I mean, it's literally like that. Like, you're sitting there. I remember sitting there, and I was at field level and watching them. I think I have the video somewhere on my phone, but just the speed at which they operate. I mean, you just can't capture it on television, the speed that those guys are able to just fast muscle twitch everything. And I mean, I had Cristiano right in front of me. I had Messi, doing stuff in front of me. And I was just like, oh my God, like, wow, I'm burn it in the brain. Don't forget. It was amazing.
Well, Jeremy, we're getting towards the end of our time on today's episode. So I wanted to ask you a final question to wrap up before we go. So the final question I have for you is, if there was one person that you could choose to interview from any era, any sport, whether they're living or whether they've passed away, who would it be and why?
Well, you've got the shirt right behind you. It would be Sir Alex Ferguson. He's number 1 on my list of interviews that I want to try to do before the end of my career. I've talked to Charlie Silitano is a good friend of Sir Alex. They're actually good friends. And Charlie's told me that at some point he would hook me up. He hasn't as of yet. But I would love to talk to Sir Alex Ferguson, just what he was able to do with those Manchester United teams and the way that he managed not only tactics, but personalities and his view and the way that he was able to get everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. That last United team that won the title, they should not have won the title. They should not. They were not the most talented team in the Premier League. That was Manchester City. Manchester City lost the title that year. United ended up getting it. But, I often say this, that United didn't win the title. City lost the title. But the way that Fergie was able to get those guys just going in one direction. I mean, I've read all kinds of stuff about him and just the type of person that he is and the type of style that he has. And I would just love to pick his brain about, what was that like when you came in and you were so close to being fired, and then it turns around and then you win the treble, and then you're just dominating the Premier League. You are, knocking Liverpool off their perch as you said you wanted to do. Like, just what was all of that like? And yeah, I mean, I hope he's around for a long time because I've still got a few years left. I still hope I get the chance to talk to him, but for me, it would be Sir Alex Ferguson. I would just love to sit down with him and have a half an hour of his time, and I'd probably get maybe one or two questions in before just fanboying right out. But yeah, he's the guy that I would want to talk to.
Well, they don't call him Sir Alex Ferguson for just any old reason. He is truly one of the classiest, most well-respected. People could argue he's like the greatest club coach ever, or one of the greatest coaches ever, without a doubt. There's obviously the Pep Guardiolas who have built a reputation. There's the Carlo Ancelottis of the world, but Sir Alex Ferguson is just almost in a class of his own. I didn't even actually expect that answer, but I have to say that now that you said it, I would definitely concur, because the knowledge and the stories and the personalities and everything that he's done, people he's met, he would have to write 20 books in order for people to even get maybe a fraction of all the different things that he's experienced over his time coaching and playing football.
And he is a true gentleman. I mean, everybody that I've spoken to that has had the chance to talk to him raves about just the fact that he's a true gentleman. Kay Murray, who I used to work with at BN Sports, who's had the chance to talk to him a number of times. She worked for Real Madrid TV, and she also worked, in the Premier League for a little bit. She couldn't speak highly enough of him. And the thing about Sir Alex is once he knows your name, he never forgets your name. He'll never forget your name. If you get introduced to him, you could see him 5 years down the road and he'll know your name. He'll remember who you are. That's the kind of guy he is. And I've heard that he's just on top of being just a great football man, he's also a true gentleman. And as I said, I hope I get the chance to talk to him.
Well, Jeremy, it's been a fantastic time being able to talk football, working on television and sports media with you. I've just had an absolute blast. I really appreciate the time you've had to be with me on today's episode.
It's been my pleasure, Matthias. So thank you very much for having me. And anytime you need me, I'm available for you.
Well, thank you for listening to today's episode with anchor for CBS Sports HQ, Jeremy St. Louis.